Welcome to the Real World. My name is Cameron. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Real World podcast. We are huge fans of movies. So if you're a movie fan, you are in the right place. Today on the Real World podcast, we're talking all about disaster movies. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Real World podcast. Make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. Today we're talking disaster movies now that the new film Twisters is in theaters. I got a chance to see that with my brother Carson. Our reaction is on the channel right now. You can go and check that out. We were both pretty big fans of this movie, so we thought this was a perfect opportunity to discuss all things disaster related. And we kind of had a discussion on, what that means, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But first, let me introduce my guest host. It is Bert. How you doing, sir?
Hey, how's it going, Cam? I'm doing great.
Great. Thank you for joining me again. Excited to talk about this topic. I know you're a pretty big fan of this genre of film, and so it's going to be a fun discussion. We are continuing the draft format. As some of you know, we've recently kind of changed things up a little bit in the podcast. Now we treat every list like a draft. So I get to pick movies that I want to draft for my list, and Bert's doing the same thing. We don't know what's on each other's list, so I can take some of his. He might take some of mine, but whoever takes it first gets it. So at the end of the show here, we're going to have two different lists of disaster movies. So we want you to tell us who had the best list. Which list do you prefer? Which list do you lean towards? Your own personal tastes. And so this is going to be a fun one. Let's jump right in. All right, so here it is, folks. It is time for the disaster film draft. Let's talk first, though, about how we went about picking these movies. Disaster movies, there's all kinds of different ones out there. There's a pretty broad kind of definition for what this genre actually is. So we wanted to kind of narrow it down a bit and not make it too broad so that we can't have a list of, specific movies. The list, when you Google disaster movie, it says a disaster film or disaster movie is a film genre that has an impending or ongoing disaster as its subject or primary plot device. So it can mean many different things. What
Yeah,
we decided to do is kind of narrow it down to natural disasters is what we
right.
tried to kind of focus in on. So that's kind of our thought going in. Bert, any thoughts on the disaster movie genre just as a whole and kind of how you went about picking your movies?
Yeah, it is one of my favorite genres. So many films, and even in sort of the specific subset of just being natural, there's quite a few there as well. To kind of add on to what you said, I tended to go for films where you actually do witness the devastation, and it's
Mm.
not just where they're talking about it, and then the film ends. There's a Steve Carell movie, "Searching for a Friend at the End of the World." It's an
Oh,
okay movie. It's decent, but they talk about it and talk about it, and then as the film closes, I guess it happens. So
right.
I didn't include those kind either.
Yeah.
No zombies, virus films,
Yep.
airline films. I mean, these are all, you know, boat disaster. I mean, there's a lot of Titanic, so I didn't
Yeah,
include
yeah.
all those because those are
Sure.
all separate lists that you could make.
Right, right.
And so we have a more finely focused here on natural disasters, but it's still a lot of fun. So many good ones just in that group.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was a great decision that we made to kind of narrow it down. Like you said, disasters on boats or planes, those are kind of their own things, and we can maybe do a future podcast about those. So, yeah, unfortunately, no snakes on a plane here. Sorry for those big snakes on a plane fans out there, but this is going to be a fun one. It's again, because this movie Twisters is out, it's doing very well. Had a big opening night, had a big opening day. It was originally projected for, I think, around 50 million opening weekend. Now it's projected to higher like 75 million. So it's exceeding expectations, which is always fun to see, especially when it's a good movie. It is a follow-up to Twister, the 1996 film. And so if you do end up going to see it, I would highly recommend watching Twister, although it's really not heavily connected to Twister. I think they just make a great kind of double feature. And so, yeah, definitely check out Twisters in theaters now. Again, check out a reaction on the channel to that. Bert, you didn't get to see Twisters yet, have you?
No, I did not, but I'm glad it's not
Okay.
one of those things where they have to tie it in. So it's like the
Yes.
son of one of the people that,
Right.
was in the original is, this is his journey now. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that doesn't always work, but I feel like
Sure.
they always do that because they have to tie it
Yes.
in or something.
Exactly. Yeah, there's really only one clear reference to the original movie in it,
Oh,
which is pretty cool. I won't spoil it, but
okay. Okay.
one other cool thing is that Bill Paxton's son does have a cameo, although he's not
Oh,
cameoing
really?
as the character's son or anything.
Okay.
It's just a
Okay.
random character that if you
Surprisingly.
didn't know it was him, then you wouldn't even know. But
Oh,
that was pretty neat to see. So
hmm.
they do tie it in certain ways. There's certain moments that are kind of similar, and things
Okay.
like that. But
Yeah.
it's very much its own thing, which I thought was a
Gotcha.
smart way to go with it. All new characters and kind of a new plot. But yeah, so anyways, highly recommend going to check it out if you haven't already. But now let's jump into our disaster movie draft. Here we go. It is time to kick off this draft with my first pick. Man, going through these, there were a lot that I really liked. It was a tough choice, but this movie stayed really at number one for most of the time that I was creating this list.
Ooh.
And it's a film by a director named J.A. Bayona. He's a Spanish director. He directed a
Oh
movie
no.
called The Impossible.
Oh no, he
Is
stole
that your
my
number
number
one?
one.
No way!
Oh yes. Oh
Oh,
yes.
wow. I
Oh
don't think
yes.
that's
This is a
happened yet, has
first.
it?
Yeah, no, it's a first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, we both had the same number one. That's incredible.
As soon as you said Spanish director, I'm like, no way.
That's so funny.
The Impossible.
The Impossible, man, let's both talk about this. This
Yeah.
movie, I've only seen it one time.
Mm,
Um, but it's so memorable. This movie, it's harrowing. This is a true story, right? We should
hmm.
say that first. It's
Yeah.
about the 2004 tsunami that hit Thailand.
Right. Right.
And I remember when this happened. I was pretty young when it happened, but I remember it being all over the news.
Yeah.
Just a devastating event. Huge loss of life and obviously property and all kinds of other things. But um, turning this into a film, such a challenge. This is one of those things where I feel like they couldn't have even made this movie 10, 20, or years before it was made, just because the effects, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're gonna, I'm sure, be talking a lot about effects in this one because they have to create these disasters
Yeah.
usually in the computer, um, and to make it feel real. I don't know how they achieve this,
I'll
but
tell you.
oh, do you? Do you know? Okay, good.
Well,
Yeah, please tell us because it looks phenomenal.
when I was watching it, I had that same thought of like, how are the effects this good? And there are
Yeah,
special effects used.
right.
I don't have the Blu-ray, so I don't know what
Okay.
features are on it, but I did do some reading up on it, and
Mm.
apparently they went and visited the original place where this happened, the actual resort in Thailand,
Oh,
and
wow.
filmed some there. And then I
Okay.
would assume, obviously, they filled in with CGI behind it.
Sure,
Obviously,
sure.
they didn't recreate the tsunami, and I
Hmm.
don't know to the extent that they used the original location, but they
Hmm.
actually went to the actual location,
Wow.
and also the hospital, which factors in later on too.
Oh,
They filmed there as well. So these are
wow.
all real. There's no extras. These aren't
Yeah,
actors
yeah.
that are running around. These are all real people aside from
Wow.
the main cast.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, the I was
Yeah.
gonna just mention the word authenticity because that's what comes to mind here is just it feels
Yeah.
so real. Feels like you are transported back to this event. You're witnessing it happen. You're kind of
Yeah.
experiencing it happen because
Right.
they of course, like a lot of these movies, the good ones at least in my opinion, really start with the characters, right? We start with the characters, who these people are, get to know them, get to like them and care about them, and then the event happens. And the fact that these are again a real event, real people, just adds to that so much. And so yeah, the direction here is fantastic.
Yeah.
The locations, as you just mentioned, are great and really immersive. Um, the cast, of course, Ewan McGregor has long time been one of my favorite actors ever since, the Star Wars prequels. I've kind of
Yeah.
followed his career, and he's just on another level here.
Yeah.
Maybe his best performance. It's really, really great. Naomi Watts, equally great in her
Yep.
role. And then we have a young Tom Holland,
Yeah.
Spider-Man now,
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
just stunning in this. I mean, what
I
he
know.
goes through and what he has to do as far as emoting and all of these different things. all just played very naturally, very believably. Never once am I taken out of the film. Again, I've only seen it the one time, but it just, like I said, it stays with you, this movie. What these people went through, and it's called The Impossible because it's really impossible that they survive this, right? It's like the
Yeah,
odds are
yeah,
so against them. They get separated and all this. I mean, everything that they had to go through and everything that they survived, over the course of, I remember it being several days, I believe, that the film takes
yeah,
place over.
yeah,
And the fact that they found each other again and all this, it really just is one of those. Like I said, it's a harrowing film. It's intense, it's scary, but at the end, it's just full of so much hope and so inspirational. It's one of those great kind of stories about the power of the human spirit, and
yeah.
it really, really is a fantastic film. So I'm a huge fan of it. It's a 5-star movie for me. One of the best disaster film, the best disaster film in my opinion. One of the best movies based on a true story. One of the best films in recent years. So, yeah, huge, huge fan of The Impossible. Any other thoughts you have, Bert, that you want to share?
Just I mean, not only did you take my number one, but I had the exact same experience. So I won't repeat
Okay.
everything you said,
Yeah.
but I will say too on the authenticity part of it.
Mm.
The original family also visited the set while they were shooting,
Wow.
and added some insight to what actually happened. So
Wow.
it's about as close as you're going to get to, a reenactment of what actually happened.
Yeah.
And they just, as the characters are being swept through the tsunami's force and the debris and rubble and injuries and all that,
Mm.
they put you right in there with it. So this is not an easy watch per se.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, me too. It's a 5-star film.
Mhm.
It's just I can't think of really many movies where I was more attached to the main
Yeah.
characters by the film's end.
Yep.
And it really had me, especially Ewan McGregor when he breaks down. And
Oh.
oh man. And then, if people wonder, I wondered actually myself when Tom Holland was, became the new Spider-Man. I thought him. I mean, I don't know who he is,
Right, right.
but then watch The Impossible and you'll
Yes.
see. I think he was 14 when he filmed it, but
Yeah.
wow, just all three of those leads, just just incredible acting, incredible
Yeah.
dramatic acting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the best. Well, that's cool that we both had it as a number one. I'm glad I have it on my list though. Um, so Bert, why don't you go
Facts.
ahead and give us your I guess second draft pick.
Okay. The next few are difficult because they're all kind of in the like vying for top spot, but I ended up
Sure.
going with Armageddon for I guess that'll be my
Ooh,
number one is
okay.
Armageddon.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's one that obviously a lot more lighter on the lighter side of things.
Sure.
But amazingly, especially for a Michael Bay film, I think does tend to have some warmth to it and depth, and by the end you do feel a little bit for the characters. It actually, the it does build some emotion, and you do feel connected to some of the characters. I mean, he's got 2.5 hour runtime here,
Right.
so and there's so many characters that are being balanced,
Yeah.
but really it's just that it's so much fun and so funny. It's one of those
Yes.
that a much easier watch than The Impossible because you don't have to kind of wince or move in your seat a little bit because of the uncomfortableness.
Sure.
So numerous times I've rewatched this one. The music's great. The
Mm.
special effects are pretty good. I think they're starting to get a bit dated, but it's just so much fun with the character work and the NASA stuff and Bruce Willis at his,
Right.
in top form,
Yeah.
and so many supporting characters that are great. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. I don't know how many times I've seen the film, but so many quotable lines,
Mm.
and it's just sort of an epic film. I don't know if I quite give it 5 stars because
Yeah.
there's a lot you could knock on it too, but
Sure.
it's just pure action entertainment.
Yep, yep. Fun movie, fun movie. We talked about this on our Twin Films podcast.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, that was a fun discussion we had on that one. Yeah, it is definitely one of the better Michael Bay films, I would say, for sure.
yeah, yeah.
One of his kind of defining films was even included in the Criterion collection at one point back in the DVD days. So yeah,
That's
excellent
right.
choice. Great cast there. The cast to me is what makes that one kind of
Yeah,
worth watching. They're just so much fun to watch those interactions they all have and their witty one-liners and all that stuff. So good
exactly.
pick,
Yeah.
good pick, good pick. Excellent. All right, so we both have our number ones out of the way. Now we're jumping into my second draft pick, and that is going to be 2024's Twisters.
Okay. Wow,
Man,
that
this
good, huh?
movie, yeah, honestly, I had such a fun time watching this movie. It
Huh.
is so well made. It's just kind of as good as crowd-pleasing, big budget blockbuster movies can get, I think. It's really well
Hmm.
done as far as the writing goes. I liked all of the characters. All of the
Wow.
actors do a great job. You know, this new up and coming actor Glenn Powell, who seems like he's kind of everywhere right now. He's great in this, brings a lot of charm and charisma to his role. Daisy Edgar Jones is one to look for. She's the lead in this, and she did a fantastic job
Hmm.
throughout the film. Anthony Ramos is a young actor I like a lot who's in it. Our new Superman is in this movie, David Corenswet, who's been
Really?
cast in James Gunn's Superman movie in the title role. Yeah, he's in this. He's kind of playing the bad guy, which is kind of fun
Oh.
to see. He's kind of, sort of like, I guess, uh, the Carrie Elway's character in the original Twister. You know, he's
Okay.
kind of got that role,
Yeah.
which is fun. And then on top of, all of the great cast members, it's just incredible when it comes to the effects. It's really on another
Hmm.
level. What they were able to accomplish here with several of the sequences are really just intense and engaging and look very realistic, as far as what's going on with the environments and the weather and all that. So just a really well-made movie, a great sequel, but a great standalone movie. It really, like, if I hadn't seen Twister, I would still give this high marks. I give it four and a
Hmm.
half stars. It's honestly one of my favorites of the year. I think it's in my top five of the year so
Wow.
far. And so very impressed. Wasn't
Yeah.
really expecting much going in. I'm like a sequel to Twister. I mean, do we need that? Like the trailers kind of look generic and it kind of looked just like a
Right.
rehash of the original, but it really does set itself apart. Like I said, there's definitely things like there's
Nice.
similarities with the original, but
Hmm.
overall, it really does set itself apart and felt like a unique experience. So I just had a great time watching it. The comedy works, the emotional elements work, the relationships work really well. And it doesn't ever kind of suspend disbelief too far, it stays right in that realistic realm. And really deals a lot too with the devastation of what these tornadoes cause in Oklahoma is where this one's set, and Kansas and
Yeah.
every other part of the kind of middle of the country there. So it dealt with that in a kind of sobering way as well, which was kind of unexpected and pleasantly surprising. So yeah, just a fun movie that I can watch anytime. I feel like I'm ready to watch it again right now because I just had such a great time watching it. So yeah, again, highly recommend checking it out in theaters now. And yeah, it did make my number two just because again, I think the filmmaking quality is there on every level. The music, they've actually got a really great soundtrack here too.
Huh.
Both the score and the kind of pop songs that they're using throughout the
Yeah.
film
Yeah.
were all chosen really well. So yeah, on every level, I just really enjoyed this. So it made number two.
That's good to hear. By the way, that's your number two. So
Yep.
I want to know do we have on the draft board Into the Storm? Is that on the draft board anywhere? It's not on mine. It's not on my list.
I don't have that one. I don't think I've ever seen it or heard of it.
Okay. I'm pointing that out because it's an example of the absolute wrong way
Oh,
to make a Twister movie.
okay.
It was publicized and stuff when it came out. It came out about 10 years ago.
Okay.
But I watched that one too, and man, the CGI was most of the time really awful and just
Ooh,
cartoonish. And I thought,
yeah.
is this a real movie? It was kind of like a B movie,
Right.
and not a lot of known actors in it. But it was
Mm.
one that went to the theater, so I didn't know if you'd
Oh,
heard of that one. But I was
so.
worried that Twisters might be like that, but I'm glad
Right.
it's not.
No worries. Yeah, no worries. This is a Spielberg
Gotcha.
production, Ambulance behind
Oh,
this.
oh, wow.
And so it's got a
Yeah.
big budget. They picked a great filmmaker, Lee Isaac Chung, who's only really done one other, I mean, not really a big movie, it's a small movie called Minari, sort of
Oh,
about his life growing up in Arkansas. Um,
hmm.
but yeah, I'm curious to go back and watch that now because what he did here was just amazing. I mean, really, really impressive stuff.
Wow.
All right, Bert, we are moving on to your second draft pick. What do you have there?
At number two, I will select Pompeii.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't get to watch this. I'm really curious
Okay.
about this movie.
Okay. I'm not going to give anything away with it,
Okay.
but it is essentially Gladiator meets Dante's Peak.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
and this is they try to be the director tries to be very faithful to the original Pompeii, the original city that was had the volcanic ash and everything else rained down upon it and sort of froze
Right.
people in time. It's like that
Yeah.
that
Right.
story,
Right. Uh-huh.
and most of the film honestly is a gladiator story
Hmm.
with sort of this volcano in the background kind of
Hmm.
brewing and getting
Okay.
ready to
Right. Right.
erupt.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, I just felt it was so well done, and it will depend on how much mileage you get out of the gladiator part of it.
Okay.
um but I will say that the cinematography, there's big sets, and the locations are really great. There's a really nice score,
Hmm.
and the story's pretty good, I would say.
Okay.
There's some really good stunts and action. So there's a lot of, I could say, that's really good on that. And then when the eruption happens, it's pretty epic.
Hmm.
And obviously it's pretty CGI heavy, but most of it looks extremely good actually. So
Okay.
they obviously put a lot of effort and time into
Yeah.
the visual effects for it.
Right.
And this is another one where the filmmakers went to the actual site of what remains of Pompeii,
Wow.
underneath what I guess it was Mount Vesuvius
Right.
that actually erupted and,
Yeah.
and rained down on the city. So they used that actual mountain that still exists as
Oh,
reference for the shots in the movie.
that's
So, and
cool.
they built the sets and things around it. So
Wow.
yeah, so to
Excellent.
me, I think it works really, really well. It's not a perfect film.
Hmm.
There's a couple criticisms, and I'll probably just put those in my review
Sure.
uh, on Letterboxd. But
Okay.
yeah, just very well done. And for an effects heavy film, it's very successful. Like I said, a great score. Also, shot in 3D and looked. I
Oh,
always talk about. I won't dwell on
sure.
the 3D, but just watching it in that
Yeah.
experience just makes it even more dreamy and and up in your face and stuff. But anyway,
Okay.
yeah, an excellent film that I highly recommend.
That's great. Yeah, I definitely want to check it out. Like I said, it was on my list. I just didn't have time to watch it. So I'll definitely be checking that out soon. That sounds really neat. All right, very good. Well, we are moving on to my number three draft pick on my list. It is a foreign film. It's a film from Norway titled The Wave.
Hmm.
So this is sort of another tsunami film.
Oh,
It's set in a real location. There's a real town that
oh,
actually exists in Norway. It's situated kind of in this valley, right next to this large body of water, surrounded by mountains. And there's tremors, earthquakes throughout this region. And if this certain mountain were to have a certain earthquake in a certain way and fall into the water, this tsunami would happen. This is kind of,
oh, wow.
proven scientific fact.
Okay.
And so basically the movie says, what if that happened? And so
Okay.
the
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
the earthquake happens, the mountain falls into the ocean and it kind of
Oh
comes
boy.
up and this town has to be evacuated. So this movie is it's got to be fairly low budget. It's a foreign film. Like I said, it's not a Hollywood production,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it looks great.
Hmm.
Really, really is well shot. Beautiful scenery. They're on location here, of course, in Norway, shooting all this, and
Mm.
just looks fantastic. Um, the actors all do a great job. I don't know their names, or I'm not even going to try to pronounce their names.
Okay.
It's a little difficult for an American to pronounce some of these names, but they're all
Yeah.
fantastic. The lead actor, Bert, you'll know, he's the guy who they capture at the beginning of Mission Impossible Fallout. I think he's playing a Russian character. He's like a blonde guy. Um,
The one
they
that
have him in
dies.
the hospital bed. They have him in the
Oh.
hospital bed when they do that whole trick fake out with him, and Wolf Blitzer's there, and it's
Oh. Oh.
Simon Pegg.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah. I do. Yeah.
He's
Okay.
he's
That
the lead
guy.
in this.
Oh.
He's fantastic.
Huh.
He delivers a great performance. He plays a dad. It's him and his wife, their two children, and it's one of those again. We're kind of focused in on them and their life,
Yeah.
and we get to know them, we get to really like them and care about them, and then the disaster kind of happens. He kind of works for the I don't know, the group that's kind of monitoring all the earthquakes and everything, and kind of he's the first one to kind of find out about it and that kind of thing. So all of it's really well done. It's very well paced. It's not a very long movie, you know. It has that nice tight runtime. Some really intense moments, you know, once the wave actually happens and they're trying to evacuate everyone and get to higher ground. All of that stuff is very well done. Never felt like, why are the characters doing this? There's so many moments in these types of movies where I'm like, why'd you do this
Yeah,
in this
yeah.
moment? Doesn't make sense. This movie didn't really have any of that. It's all, you know, they're playing it very straight, very believably. It's
Uh-huh.
very well done.
Huh.
And so I'd highly recommend it. The wave itself,
Okay.
you know, again, the effects are solid. I'm not going to say they're like level of, you know, twisters that just came out or something. This movie was released several years ago. Um, but it still looks good. It doesn't never took me out of the movie like, oh, that looks totally fake. They're
Yeah.
dealing with a lot of, you know, once the wave hits the town, there a lot of scenes are obviously real water they're using in certain
Mm-hmm.
sequences and things like that. And you know what happens to certain characters who get trapped in the town and how they're trying to rescue them. And it's a really just well-made movie all around. There's so many different elements to it that really work. Um, the guy who directed this, his first name is Roar, which I think is just a cool first name.
Yeah.
Roar Uthog, I think is his name. He ended up directing that new Tomb Raider movie with Alicia Vikander,
Oh,
which I really liked.
right. Yeah.
This is, I think, what got him that job,
Huh.
and I'm curious to see what he does next. But it's a
Yeah.
great one. It's another one that, like The Impossible, is very family oriented, you know,
Yeah.
type of
Yeah.
film. Again, has a lot of intensity to it. Great, you know, kind of mix of different types of characters too. But it stays really focused in on those four. And that's why I think it's such a strong film, is because it really focuses in on those characters and kind of what they're going through and what they have to do, you know, to survive this event. So highly recommend it. It's streaming right now. It's I think on Hulu is where I watched it. So you can watch it right now on Hulu, and I would definitely say that you should if you haven't seen it already.
Yeah. I'll have to check that one out.
Yep. All right, Bert, we're on to your number three draft pick. What's there?
And that's where I will select San Andreas.
Mm, okay, yeah, I saw this in theaters.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Dwayne Johnson,
Right?
obviously, another situation where it's his family that he's trying to
Yeah.
protect.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, one of the more believable plot lines I feel like in a disaster film is an earthquake.
Mm,
And I can't say that everything that happens after the earthquake is legit.
sure.
But you know, it's kind of all across, you know, top to bottom in California and the big cities and all that. And so
Right.
it does set up just a lot of crazy, you know, eye candy and devastation type scenes, of
Right.
which various characters are trying to survive, particularly Dwayne Johnson and his family.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's quite an intense ride personally.
Yeah.
I don't buy everything, you know.
Sure.
There's a lot of CG, but honestly, the visual effects look great here.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of them that I think the visual effects are really, really good for the most part.
Yeah.
There's one particular scene involving a tsunami, which hits,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because obviously earthquakes can trigger that,
Yep.
and the tsunami comes in. I mean, the whole thing is pretty ludicrous, but it looks really great
Yeah.
considering what they're trying to do. I'm not even going to say it's 100% successful, but I felt it was pretty
Mm-hmm.
intense and honestly kind of jaw dropping.
Yeah.
The ambitiousness of this
Right.
tsunami wave, and Dwayne Johnson trying to go up over the wave in his tiny little boat, you know,
Yeah. Right.
and that kind of thing. I just thought it was really great.
Yeah.
You know, technically and that kind of thing. I thought it was pretty exciting. The whole film really has a lot of exciting things. Some excellent camera work, a decent score. So another one that was shot in 3D too, actually. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
it's mostly a lot of fun, but
Sure.
I feel like you do get invested in the characters a little bit too, not as much as you know, a few of the ones we mentioned before
Sure.
necessarily,
Sure.
but overall, just, you know, extremely entertaining.
Yeah. It is definitely an entertaining film. Really, I think really impressive as far as the effects go. Like you were mentioning,
Yeah,
I definitely remember that all standing out, the destruction sequences, and that's kind of
yeah,
one of the main reasons you go to these movies, right? Is you want to see
yeah,
like the devastation and the craziness of what would this be like, and you know the kind of horror of all of this, you know, madness ensuing. It's very entertaining.
yeah. I feel like the ideal is to have wonderful devastation and also
Yeah.
a great story, right?
Yes, exactly. That's
That's
the
your
goal.
goal.
Right, exactly. Yes, yes, exactly. It doesn't always happen, but yeah, that one,
Yeah.
I mean, Dwayne Johnson, I like him. I like him a lot as an actor. I'm excited to see him. He's going to kind of said he wants to do more dramatic stuff in the future, which I think is going to be interesting. But yeah, he's great. Carla Gugino is in that as well, who I really like.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely a fun one. I remember it fondly. All right, great pick. On to my number four. I've got to take the original Twister. I've got to do it.
Mm.
This movie to me, man, did you have that pretty high on your
It was
list?
not the next one, but the one after
Okay,
I
really?
had it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I got to take it. It's
yeah,
so good.
it
This is one
is.
of the few disaster movies I own because this is one that
Oh,
I'm like, I could rewatch this all the
yeah,
time. I mean, I just
right.
really like, again, it's the characters. It's the mix of characters here. Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt are, of course, great. They have great chemistry in this, but it's their whole crew, right? Philip Seymour Hoffman and Alan Ruck's in there, and like I mentioned earlier, Carrie Elway's on the other side, the other team.
Yeah, yeah.
Their whole dynamic, it just feels so natural, and like they're real
Uh-huh.
friends, and
Yeah,
you just love hanging out with them. They're kind of funny and nerdy and just
yeah,
fun to be with. So just spending time with this movie is a blast because I
yeah,
just
yeah.
enjoy that whole back and forth that all those characters have. Um, Helen Hunt's character arc, starting with her as a young girl and seeing what she went through, and then her kind of overcoming those fears and all that, and
Hmm. That's good
Bill
stuff.
Bill Paxton and her and their relationship. He's the whole movie. He's just trying to get her to sign these divorce papers, and it's like, it's just a great kind of idea, just to kind of hook you in as the audience. So and then the effects, really, I think they hold up pretty good. There's a couple of wonky moments, with the tornadoes. They kind of don't look super realistic necessarily at certain times, but as far as obviously they're using a lot of wind machines and rain machines and all that to
Yeah.
make it look real, and it really they pulled it off. I think. Most of the scenes here look great. Jan de Bont directs this, coming right off of Speed. He did a fantastic job with Speed a couple years before this. And this one's another Amblin Entertainment production. So Spielberg is behind this. I realized the other night that Michael Crichton wrote the screenplay. He, of course,
Oh,
wrote the book
that's
Jurassic
interesting.
Park. So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. And so just a great team behind the scenes. Jan de Bont, he started off as a cinematographer.
Hmm.
So the cinematography here is fantastic. I found the score to be great. I got to rewatch
Yeah,
this just the other
yeah.
night. It is a really good score. I want to listen to the commentary. I didn't get to listen to the commentary, but I want to check that out. I'm curious about that. So yeah, one that I just think is very, very well edited. It's under 2 hours. Just a wild ride, a literal wild ride if you went to Universal, which I remember being younger and going to Universal Studios and experiencing the Twister experience.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
pretty epic. You feel like you're right in the middle of the movie, which is pretty cool. But yeah, great film that I've watched so many times. This is when I grew up. My one of my childhood friends, Jordan, um, owned this movie and was a huge fan, and so we watched it
Yeah.
many times on VHS when I was younger, and I still enjoy it to this day. So it's great. But yeah, I had to take Twister there. So that's my number four.
I got just three quick things on
Yeah.
Twister. First of all, yeah, the score is really good. There's also on the soundtrack, and I think this song closes the film. It's
Mm-hmm.
an instrumental track by Eddie Van Halen, and he just
Really?
kind of goes off on the guitar, and it's an
Oh,
excellent guitar solo.
nice.
It's like a 7 minute long song. It's called Respect the
Wow.
Wind. Great
Okay.
song, great song.
Cool.
And then I remember when this came out, it's the Spielberg tie-in is interesting because
Yeah.
Jurassic Park kind of started the CGI
Right.
kick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know, and then this was the next year, right? And then so Twister
A couple
came
years
out.
later, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then so this movie comes out, and watching this in the theater, it was like, wow, this is what we can get from CG. It was like, this
Yeah.
is revolutionary, even
Right.
more, maybe more so even than just the Jurassic Park. Now you can take it
Right.
into areas like this,
Yeah.
So I remember
Yeah.
thinking, people are thinking that kind of stuff like, wow,
Uh-huh.
this is great. It's an exciting time.
Yeah.
And then I find it interesting in Twister because you're watching what they're trying to accomplish, which is get this truck out in the middle of the twister so these things can go up these orbs and then they can test it and then it'll solve all these problems. And the first time I watched the movie, I'm like, wow, do people know this? Like, can we actually do this then? Have we ever, to date in 2024, have we done this
Right.
now? Like,
Yeah.
did we solve all those problems? So anyway, some thoughts.
It's a good thought. It's a good thought. Yeah, they have a new science experiment they're doing in the sequel, Twisters, which I won't give away, but I was like,
Ah,
man, if that's real, that's really cool. We should try that. So
right.
yeah, that's neat. That's neat. Okay, cool. All right, Bert, that was my number four draft pick. Now we're on to your number four. What do you got?
And it's a somewhat similar film to San Andreas. It's
Mm,
2012.
okay. Okay.
Also, in some countries, it's known as 2012.
Okay.
So country specific.
Right.
No, but this is goodness, this is a ridiculous film, right?
Right.
It's obviously this concept that the tectonic plates are shifting, and
Hmm.
where we are now is ends up being in China, and so like you got to try to get on these big giant arcs
Yeah.
to try to escape it all, and
Very
then
Genesis.
yeah, right, yeah. Last time, or we had Evan Almighty like 2 weeks
Oh,
ago,
that's right.
or something
Yeah.
like that.
There's a Noah theme going on here.
Yeah, right. And I just have so much fun with it. Part of it is that I think in the year 20, I think it was 2009 when this came out.
Right.
And at that time, I just felt like the special effects, while not perfect, just those visual effects were so large scale and detailed, and I was just super impressed by the scope of what they were trying to show in some of these scenes. As ridiculous as they were, I'm just saying, you got these apparent massive structures like two-story houses
Yeah.
shaking, and it looks realistic, and then some
Right.
debris falling everywhere. I mean, I'm saying those scenes are just incredible to look at as someone who really
Yeah.
appreciates visual effects.
Sure. Sure.
I'm trying to give all the good because I know there's a lot we could say that's not so great. And then when they eventually get to the arcs, I just think those are really
Mm,
impressive to see
yeah.
too. They're kind of a sight to behold, and I know they're not
Right.
real. They didn't really build these
Sure.
things.
Right.
And so just a lot of fun action in between, and I laugh a few times here and there at actual jokes, and then sometimes it's so ridiculous that I laugh. I think there's a point where in a span of about half an hour, there's three airplane takeoffs that barely get off the
Right.
ground before they fall
Yes.
into the earth. So yeah, I guess not everybody's gonna like what they see, and maybe I think the effects still hold up actually, but there
Huh.
have been other films now, such as San Andreas
Mm,
and another one I'll mention in a bit here too,
mm.
Pompeii too, where
Oh,
there are more of these big scale disaster films that look really great.
right.
You're watching CG, but
Hmm.
just
Sure.
those effects are just super impressive, and
Yeah.
I think they've held up. But so yeah, it's kind of a throwaway film, but I just enjoy it because of the visuals and just the fun part of it.
Right.
What are your thoughts? I mean, on 2012?
Yeah, I'm not crazy about it. Like you said, the
Yeah,
effects really are impressive, though. I will admit. I think it looks great as far as the destruction. I mean, it doesn't
yeah,
doesn't really get any better than that, honestly. I mean, that and San Andreas, I think, are probably the two best just looking movies as far as the visual effects go, being realistic and looking just kind of jaw-dropping, all the huge scale
yeah,
destruction. Which Roland Emmerich did that, I think, right? I mean, he's kind of the
yeah, yeah.
disaster guy, right?
Hmm.
So, yeah, no surprise there. Yeah, it's just the characters I just didn't really care for, and I like John Cusack, I like him, but I just
Yeah.
didn't find his character to be very compelling.
Well, they don't really draw
Um,
you in like some of the other films we've mentioned before
right.
this. Like by the end,
Yeah.
I'm not thinking, oh, well, I'm actually nervous for this character. I'm not
Right.
really. I mean, not
Right.
so much. Not compared
Yeah.
to the other films before this one.
Exactly. Exactly. I agree. Although I will say, Woody Harrelson is fantastic in that movie. I
Another
love
good
watching
Woody
his
role.
performance.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
it's so much fun. So
yeah.
much fun. He's the saving grace of that movie. He's the only reason I would probably watch it again, just to see his
Oh,
wild, wacky performance,
yeah.
because it is so much fun. So yeah, yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, so that was your number four. Jumping back to my list, on my number five, I'm gonna go with a Hitchcock classic.
Oh,
It's The Birds.
oh, I haven't seen this.
Okay, so The
I know of it.
Birds, yeah, so The Birds is one of the kind of classic, most popular Hitchcock movies,
Hmm.
released in 1963 by Universal. It is actually based on a short story from 1952, and it focuses on the it's kind of very sudden, unexplained, violent bird attacks.
Oh,
Um, we're never really told why the birds are doing this,
oh,
but they just kind of randomly start attacking people.
hmm.
And so its effects are sure dated, I guess you could say, but again, what I like about older movies pre-CG is that they're they're all practical effects. So while it
Yeah.
might not look like real birds attacking people, it at least is something. It's not a digital
Oh,
creation. You know what I mean? It's like birds on wires, or I don't know how they did some of these. Some of these do look very real. There's certain scenes that are very scary,
hmm.
and that are pretty intense actually. I don't know what rating this got, but it was it's a pretty freaky movie. Certain scenes are. It's maybe a little bit long. I feel like it drags a little bit at the end, but the performances are really good. Rod Taylor, Jessica Tandy, both do a great
Oh,
job acting in this movie.
hmm.
It was one of those, selected for the Library of Congress National Film Registry back in 2016 because of its kind of historical significance. Because it was kind of groundbreaking as far as the effects went and things like that. Hitchcock was a really kind of revolutionary filmmaker. He doesn't get enough credit for what he did with the camera and with certain effects and things like that. He was really innovative. And so it's one that's I think stood the test of time pretty well. Like I said, other than the kind of more drawn out runtime and just a couple of I would say minor, effects moments that kind of don't look maybe as believable as others. But
Mm.
like I said, a lot of it very intense. I like the characters too. I think the screenplay is good. And what they all end up doing. There's some great scenery too. It's all kind of shot on this kind of seaside town. Bodega Bay, California, is where most of it takes place. And so keeping it to one location, one group of characters, I think, is another thing that helps a lot. And it's one that I've enjoyed a couple times because it is quite a fun watch. And if you're looking for an older, kind of horror movie, it's one that I would certainly recommend. So
Hmm. Good
that
one.
made my number five pick. All right, Bert, on to your fifth pick. What do you have there?
Okay. Well, you took Twister, and so I have to then select from the board Daylight.
Oh man, see, I still need to see this. I know you've told me about it before. This is the Stallone movie, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, gotta
Stallone.
see
He
this.
plays sort of an ex-emergency worker,
Mm,
and he comes across this situation where there's an explosion in the underground tunnel between New Jersey and New York, and it
mm,
seals off both ends. And there's fires, and people have to get out before the water rises. And yeah, several very exciting sequences in this film, including one that I pointed out on our podcast about stunts, where
yeah,
Stallone has to he has one shot. He has to break into the tunnel by passing a series of giant fans that are spinning, and they're laying horizontally. And
right.
you know what I'm talking about, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and that's just one of the scenes that are very exciting. Stallone himself, one of the reasons he's good is because you can put him in these situations where the average person cannot do these physical scenes. There's a handful
Yeah,
of
right.
actors probably that you could do. I don't even know if Tom
Sure.
Cruise could pull off some of the physicality,
Hmm.
because there's it's not just that scene. There's other ones inside the tunnel,
Right.
and I'm sure there's some wires for safety that they
Yeah.
digitally erase. But I mean,
Hmm.
he's a physical specimen, Stallone.
Oh yeah.
And then on top of that, he may not be like a Shakespearean actor, but I think he's very good at what he
Yeah. Oh
does
yeah.
and convincing.
Hmm.
And so it makes for quite an effective film.
Yeah.
It's a Rob Cohen film, and he was on
Mm.
fire in the '90s.
Hmm.
Dragonheart and some others.
Right. Right.
And the score, I've mentioned the score before. One of my
Mm.
favorite all time scores. It is a synthesized score, and I kind of
Hmm.
wish there was more orchestra, but still,
Hmm.
it's yeah, a very exciting movie if you get a chance to see it.
Yeah, it's definitely on my watch list, which seems to grow every week as we talk about movies more and
Yeah.
more. But I'll definitely be checking it out eventually. It's one that I certainly want to watch. All right, great pick. Now we're on to my number six draft pick. I'm gonna take Only the Brave. So Only the Brave is a movie directed by Joseph Kosinski, who's a director I really like. He just did
Yeah.
Top Gun Maverick. He did Oblivion with Tom Cruise. He also did Tron Legacy. All movies I really
Yeah.
like. All
Oh
movies I'm a
yeah.
huge fan of all those films. So he's just a fantastic filmmaker. And he directed this back in 2017. It to me, it's like the movie that he made that just totally went under the radar. I feel like no one talks about it. It was a huge box office bomb. I don't know if they just didn't
Hmm.
market it right or what exactly happened there. Maybe it had competition the weekend it came out. I don't know, but it only made 26 million on a $38 million budget, so it didn't even make its money back. But it's
Hmm.
really a fantastic film. Another one of these harrowing true stories about the Granite Mountain Hotshots. These guys over in Arizona who fought this real life wildfire um, back in 2013. It is stacked cast. We've got Josh Brolin in there, James Badge Dale, who's an underrated actor I like a lot. We've got Jeff Bridges,
Hmm.
Miles Teller,
Oh yeah.
Taylor Kitsch, Ben Hardy, Andy McDowell, and Jennifer Connelly are all in this, alongside some other great actors too. Big cast. All of them deliver fantastic performances. And it's one of those, there's not a whole lot of movies about, firefighters, especially not, wildfire guys that fight these types of fires. Totally different kind of scenario than your traditional kind of firefighters deal with. But man, some really impressive cinematography here. Just some beautiful shots of scenery, devastating shots of this huge wildfire that erupted.
Hmm.
And it's a movie it's very well edited. It doesn't really overstay its welcome too much, I don't think. Has a good score. Um, but it's really the performances that really stand out in my mind. For those who don't know, most of these men died fighting this fire, and the aftermath of the families dealing with that is shown in this film, and it's very, very heartbreaking, to say the least. The kind of reactions that the family has to learning about losing their loved ones who are trying to save lives fighting this fire. So that moment really stands out towards the end of the film. But before that, again, building the characters, building this kind of camaraderie these guys have, is what makes you so emotional at the end of the film. And it's all very well executed. Like I said, the way it's shot is just beautiful. And the acting again just totally stands out as being some really impactful moments there. So it's a movie again. Unfortunately, a lot of people didn't see. I think it's streaming somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where. Let me see if I can find real quick where it might be
Yeah, this
available.
is one that I really
It's on
wanted to see.
Stars.
It's just did not have enough time
Did
to
you?
get to it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely worth checking out. We're well worth a watch. Because yeah, it's just incredible what these guys did.
Yeah.
And so yeah, had to make the list somewhere. It maybe is a little long, it would maybe be my only criticism. It's a really, really well-made movie though, definitely worth seeking out. So yeah, that's my number six.
Nice.
Bert, we're now on to your number six. What do you have there?
Dante's Peak is what I will
Ah,
take.
okay.
And yeah, this one is just a really it's more of a drama, but it's obviously about this volcano that erupts and destroys this town that's right next to it. It's kind of like Mount St. Helens, but with
Right.
Mount St. Helens, people knew what was going to happen. And in this
Sure.
film, there's no warning apparently, and
Yeah.
so it kind of takes everybody by surprise.
Mm.
There's some good visuals here. There's a lot more practical. This was back in the '90s when it came out, and obviously there was some CGI available, but they don't lean into that and try to
Mhm.
rely on that. You can tell there's a lot of actual something that they're raining down on
Yeah.
actors and
Right.
that kind of thing. So
Right.
so that really helps the film,
Hmm.
that they didn't try to do late '90s CG as the star. um and I think everything looks really great. There's I mean, obviously they probably did use some CG. There's this scene where There's this giant river flow of debris and stuff that's kind of crashing down on or coming
Mm,
toward people and stuff, and it's
hmm.
just looks really great. I don't know how
Yeah.
they did it all.
Right.
Um, and there's yeah, I do know there was some great miniatures that were used too, and some
Yeah.
composites and this kind of thing. So
Sure.
some really great stuff there. And the plot's pretty believable, about this guy Pierce Brosnan who kind of he knows about what's going to happen, but no one else apparently
Right.
knows, and so he wants to warn them, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, it erupts, and he's not really able to warn them, and then he's just trying to get out of the way of it, and so
Hmm.
at a certain point in the movie. They get you in this really, really cramped space where I really feel my claustrophobia coming out, So,
Yeah. Sure.
yeah, it's a really well made
Yeah.
disaster film that doesn't have to rely too much on modern CG.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, good one. I had it on my list, but you took it, so I won't be able to select that one any longer. But yeah, we talked about that one extensively also with our Twin Films podcast we
Yeah,
did a while back. That and Volcano.
volcano. Yeah.
I think we all ended up on the side of Dante's Peak on that debate. So excellent. All right, great pick. Now we're on to my number seven. I'm going to take a movie called Greenland.
Oh,
Did you I take that one from you too?
it's about three down, but
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Oh, it's
All
definitely
right.
on there. Yep.
Yeah, Greenland is a blast. I really like
Yeah.
this. This is another one that is really well made. It's a big scale movie, great effects. All of the destruction looks great. Um, it's Gerard Butler starring here, and
Hmm.
really like him. I don't think he's necessarily picked all the best movies to star in, maybe. I feel like his talent always kind of exceeds the films he's in, unfortunately, but he's always good and he's always, great in these kind of leading man roles. Um, he does a great job here as, again, family man. That's kind of a theme throughout these, usually following a family through this kind of crisis. He's playing a structural engineer. Um, he and his wife, he's estranged from, Marina Baccarin. I like her a lot. I think she's a fantastic actress. Everything I've seen her in, I've liked. Other great actors here: Holt McCallany, I think is his name. Scott Glenn, who's an actor I like a
Yeah.
lot. So it's a good cast. Um, haven't heard of the director, don't really know much about what he's done. I think he did the first or maybe the last of the Has Fallen films with Gerard Butler.
Hmm.
But this is just a solid film. Solid film, as a comet, planet destroying comet racing to Earth, and you're kind of getting these smaller comets hitting before the big one arrives, and it's just really really well made on every level. I like the script is solid. Might not be quite as good as some of the ones higher on my list, but I think it's a solid script. It's very well shot, well edited, has some good music in there too. Um, the sequel I've been waiting for. They announced this a while back. It's called Greenland Migration.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting.
it still doesn't have a release date. I mean, it supposedly has already been shot. I don't know
Oh,
what
okay.
if it's caught up in some rights issue. I have no idea what's going on with it, but
Huh.
they are releasing a sequel at some point in the future.
Oh,
So be on the lookout for
gotcha.
Greenland 2. But yeah, this is just a very entertaining film. Again, where I feel like, we get to know the characters and like the characters, and I think there's some emotional moments there, emotional depth to it that really works. And so, yeah, if you haven't seen Greenland, check it out. There's another interesting thing about Greenland. There's a scene in the film where they specifically say that one of the smaller comets has hit Florida, and they specifically actually say it's between Tampa and Orlando, which is where I live.
Oh,
So,
great.
if I'm in this movie, I'm probably dead. But it's really kind of cool to hear that. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
us.
That's
So
funny.
it's kind of funny. But yeah, so that's my next pick there, Greenland.
Nice one. Yeah.
All right, Bert, we're on to your number seven now. What do you have there?
And I've got a Ron Howard film called 13 Lives.
Oh, great one. That was my next pick.
Oh, okay. Well, we can both talk about it.
Yeah.
And I didn't get a chance to rewatch it, but it was very impactful when I saw it. and obviously it's about this. They're a soccer team, right? A kid. Well,
Yeah.
are they kids? They're like teenagers.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and they go. I think if I recall, I think they go swimming. And I should let you tell the story. They go
No, no, no,
swimming in
you
these
got it.
caves or
That's it.
something.
Yep. You got it.
Is that it? Yeah, and then
Yeah.
they get trapped,
Uh-huh.
and they've got to get rescued. True story. True
Yep.
story.
Yeah.
And I just I do remember that they have to actually at one point put the kids under anesthesia
Mm,
to get them
right.
out of that
Yes.
situation.
Yes.
It's very scary, very scary.
Yeah.
Again, the
It's,
claustrophobia
it's
meter is
incredible.
hitting very
Yeah.
high on this one, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those very intense sort of the just you're on the edge of your seat the whole time, even though again it's a true story. I didn't really know what happened. I knew
Yeah.
heard something about it. I didn't really know all the details. So watching this, yeah, is very one of those that make your palms sweat a little bit because it's
Yeah.
like, man, how are they going to get all these kids out? And
Yeah.
yeah, the disaster there is really the rain, right? Because the rain was caused, I think, some kind of landslide. They couldn't escape, and there were other people on the mountain trying to dig them out,
Hmm.
or kind of divert the rainfall to a certain way. There's all kinds of different elements to that film that's really
Yeah.
interesting to see. Kind of the big group effort that it took to rescue those kids. Really incredible. Great cast. Viggo Mortensen, always great. He's in there,
Yep.
and Ron Howard. I mean, he doesn't make a bad movie. So
Yeah.
great film, great pick. Yeah, really like that one. All right, I'll defer to my next one, which I think is really it's pretty equal for me with 13 Lives. I think it's just as good. It's called Deepwater Horizon.
Oh, okay.
Man, this movie, I've watched it several times. I have it on Blu-ray, and it looks great. Peter Berg directed this. Mark Wahlberg stars alongside Kurt Russell, one of my favorite actors of all time. And
Yeah.
his daughter, Kate Hudson, is in it. The first movie they've been in together, which is kind of cool
Oh,
to see. John Malkovich is in there. Really good cast. Dylan O'Brien, young actor I really like. Gina Rodriguez, really good cast. And it's all about this oil rig, right? And the I don't know all the details. The pressure builds and it goes up in smoke. Basically, it's like we got to
yeah.
evacuate the oil rig. There's another true story. This really happened. The BP oil spill, and really intense moments here as they're trying to survive on this rig out in the middle of the water, and trying to, save as many as they can, get them off this rig before it just completely explodes and, no one can survive. Um, so really great. I love it because Malkovich is kind of playing the company guy who's like, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. They're all kind of warning him, at the beginning of the movie,
Gotcha.
like we should probably, stop this. And he's going, it's not a big deal. Just shows you the kind of, mindless, heartless corporate mindset some people have. But um, it's really good. It's really, again, a movie a lot about, sacrifice and heroism and, again, the kind of indomitable human spirit, which a lot of these movies kind of focus on. And again, I think the fact that it's a true story like 13 Lives elevates it,
Hmm.
certainly. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's one that had to put on the list because again, I've watched it several times and I really like it every time I watch it because again, you like the characters. You get to know them and kind of
Yeah.
appreciate them and these
Right.
hardworking guys, they're working in the muck and the grime of this oil rig
Hmm.
all day. You get to really connect with them. So yeah, that's number 8 on my list.
Yeah, and by the way, on that one, we
Hmm.
talked about it one time before, I think, but
Yeah.
for whatever reason, when I was watching it, I sometimes couldn't tell what was going on in when during the heavy action, and that
Yeah.
just frustrated me. And so I
Yep.
don't dislike the film,
Hmm.
but that kind of held it back from being excellent. But maybe I should watch it again. I'd be willing to. I
Yeah.
know it was a very good drama too,
Yeah.
so
It is. It
it
is. And
wasn't that it's bad.
I kind of I could see how that could be a criticism. I think rewatches help. When you have it, you're watching it there at home, you can kind of see, okay, now step back a little bit, and after you've seen it, you can kind of figure out what's going on. But yeah, I think, and some of that might have been intentional. They're maybe trying to put you in the shoes of the characters because the characters kind of don't know what's going on, where to go.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so
That's true.
some of that might actually be intentionally in there. But yeah, I think
Yeah,
on rewatch, you probably would enjoy it more.
yeah.
All right, Bert, on to your number eight. What do you have there?
Okay, so that is where I'm going to switch it up a little bit and go with some outright comedy, and that
Okay.
is the film Don't Look Up.
Okay. Yes.
And
I know
I
this
did,
one. Yeah.
yeah, I watched
Uh,
this one for the second time. Enjoyed
I
it
do.
quite
Okay.
a bit both times.
Okay.
It just really goes at politicians and
Mm,
sends them up.
hmm.
And on these kind of films, I prefer this style where I can't really tell necessarily who they're trying, which side they're trying to make fun of,
Yes.
because I don't want to be thinking about that when I watch a film.
Right, right, right.
I want to just have it be fun.
Sure.
Making fun of the politicians, I'm kind of all for that in some ways. And
Yeah.
so maybe it's clear to some people who specifically they're making fun of. I can't
Right.
really tell. So I can just relax and just enjoy sort of the lampooning that
Yes.
takes place.
Right.
And Jennifer Lawrence, boy, she chooses a hairstyle here.
That's for sure.
No, but she's good. She's good.
Yeah.
It's different for her. DiCaprio, I'll tell you what, DiCaprio, I've never seen him play this kind of sort of dweebish kind of role. I like to
Right.
see him step out and do something different, which he's done many times. Don't get me
Sure.
wrong, but I just completely forget I'm looking at DiCaprio in this film. And and maybe the biggest star, what gets the biggest laughs here is the editing, because for whatever
Mm.
reason they choose to edit this film so that in the middle of people's sentences, it'll jump to another scene. Even when the president's talking and stuff
Yeah.
like that, or
Right.
DiCaprio will be in the middle, he'll be in the middle of saying something and he's getting ready to punctuate it, and they cut away to this random next scene, and it cracks me up so much. It's got to be intentional that they're trying to be funny. It works for
Yeah.
me. It's
Right.
just extremely funny. I love the
Yeah.
Michigan State references here. I'm a Michigan State guy. Ron Perlman's pretty funny too. And actually, at the end, there are some really nice visual effects of devastation.
Sure.
They don't show a ton of that stuff, but that's okay. They give you an idea of what happened. Jonah Hill, he cracked me up a few times too. I've heard he's not necessarily the nicest guy in real life either, but he plays kind of a dirtbag president's son in this film, and he
Right.
plays it well and
Yeah.
cracks me up quite a few times. So anyway, it's just a very clever, funny film that I get quite a kick out of.
Gotcha. I don't remember this one as fondly as you. I watched it once when
Mm,
it first came out. It just didn't hit for whatever reason.
okay.
Yeah, certain moments were funny, and the cast is just, I mean, incredibly talented actors all the way across the board. For whatever reason, it didn't land for me, really on any level that I can really remember. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's one that I haven't revisited. Maybe I should give it
You should
another
give it another
shot.
shot. It's oh
Yeah,
man, it's so
yeah.
funny.
I remember there's certain definitely some laugh out loud moments. It was just
Okay,
I
yeah,
think the overall experience maybe I just didn't really connect with for whatever reason. So yeah, maybe I'll
yeah.
maybe I'll give it another shot though and see how it lands now.
It's very interesting that I'm talking about this movie because after I started talking about it, my phone started blowing up
Oh,
that apparently Joe Biden did exit the
oh,
race for the White House
oh wow.
and has endorsed his vice president. So
Interesting.
um,
Wow.
yeah,
Breaking news
yeah.
here on the Real World Podcast. This is
But it's interesting
interesting.
that we're talking about
Right.
politics and the
Right.
president and lampooning. Not that I'm
Yes.
lampooning Joe Biden,
Sure, of
but
course. Yes.
boy, the irony. My phone doesn't normally
Right.
blow up during this,
Yeah.
but very strange.
That is strange. That is quite a coincidence or providence, whatever, depending on your belief system. But yeah,
Right.
cool, cool. All right, that was your number eight. Now we're on to my number nine. It's gonna be a movie called Crawl. Um,
Oh,
have you heard of Crawl? You know
is that the
Crawl?
alligator movie?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay. I don't know if I've seen this.
okay, you should definitely watch it.
Okay.
Um, I almost didn't take it just because it is more about the gator
Oh,
than the natural disaster. It's set during a hurricane, so that's why I counted it.
oh,
That's kind of
gotcha.
how the gator gets into this house. Is the house gets
Okay.
flooded.
Oh,
It's all set in Florida, so I'm right there. I'm like,
yep.
this is my life.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully not. Hopefully
Right,
not.
exactly. But it's great. It's very well made. It's a great thriller. Where is she? Kea Scodelario.
Oh,
She's the lead actress in this, and she basically uh, comes home to Florida and finds herself in the middle of this hurricane, having to rescue her dad, played by Barry Pepper, who's
oh, Barry Pepper. Yeah.
trapped. Yeah,
Mhm.
he's trapped in his home,
Oh,
can't escape, and the floodwaters come in, right? And he's in the basement. And so the floodwaters come in, the basement starts to fill with water, and then lo and behold, giant alligator is on the prowl in their basement trying to hunt him down. So it's just one of those great kind of concepts that really works because of the actors involved doing a great job performing the runtime being a tight I want to say it's like 87 minutes. I mean, it's such a quick runtime. This was produced by Sam Raimi, who obviously has an eye for talent and for this horror genre. It's much
yeah.
more kind of a horror leaning film. But man, low budget, 15 million was the budget here. The crocodile, I'm assuming, was completely CGI. It looked very
Oh,
realistic.
oh, that's good.
Yeah, it looked great. And has a great tense score. I mean, it's just everything you could want from a kind of this type of kind of, again, you're talking about claustrophobic, with 13 Lives. This has that
Yeah,
element to it,
yeah.
certainly,
Okay.
because you're basically in the basement the whole movie with them. And so all of it is just very well executed. It's a small movie. It's one that, kind of went under the radar, but is well worth seeking out because I think it's just kind of one of those thrill rides that doesn't stop. And it's again, since it's a short runtime, it really hits all the way through, and it doesn't
Hmm.
doesn't ever let up.
Wow.
So
Okay.
well worth seeking out. Crawl.
I like those kind of films.
Yeah, yeah, it's really
Okay.
good. And again, the hurricane, it's not like necessarily surviving a hurricane. I mean, kind of is. That's part of it too, but
Yeah.
it's more about the gator, which you know, I guess could we consider Jaws a natural disaster movie? I mean, sharks are natural creatures, right? So I don't know,
Well, but
but
if Jaws was during a hurricane,
exactly. That's
yeah.
that's why I included this is because there is a big, weather phenomenon going on as
Yeah.
well. So
I want to know if the alligator survives the hurricane is what I want to
yeah,
know.
exactly. That's the big question. Does the alligator survive? Yes. All right, Bert, we're moving on to your number nine. What do you have there?
Okay, a really interesting one I just watched. It's called Geostorm.
Oh, I have not seen this.
Okay,
Isn't this
okay.
Gerard Butler?
It is. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah, Gerard Butler, Abby Cornish,
Yeah,
and
I
then
like her.
smaller roles, Ed Harris and Andy Garcia.
Oh, wow.
There's some names that people would recognize.
Hmm.
It is, I'm going to just give the description here because it's complicated.
Okay.
So it's set supposedly in 2019, but it's got, I mean, there's a few things that don't make sense. They came out in 2017. At one point, they referenced 2019, but with the kind of tech on display, it maybe be more like 2085 or something.
Oh, okay.
And don't get me wrong; it's not like tech is just absolutely impossible. It's just
Right.
that. So let me just give a quick description here. So after an unprecedented series of natural disasters threatening the planet, the world leaders come together and create an intricate network of satellites to help
Mm,
control the global climate and keep everyone safe. Then something goes wrong. So it's
okay.
almost like up around where the ISS is,
Yeah.
that range above
Yeah.
Earth. They create around the entire world
Oh.
this sort of grid of
Oh.
it's really hard to grasp in some ways, but I really enjoyed it. It is
Okay.
an overstuffed film. Honestly, it should
Mm.
probably be three films,
Oh.
but um, it, it's yeah. There's a lot of devastation pictured. There's a lot of space scenes, so like
Mm.
it's like this really massively expanded ISS
Yeah.
that you get to see.
Hmm.
Um, all of this stuff technically looks really good. I'm not going to say that um, you get that involved in the characters, but a
Mm.
little bit.
Okay.
So it's not one that you're really, hanging in there,
Yeah.
gripping your seat, hoping that they'll make it through.
Right.
But and Gerard Butler does fine, but he doesn't really set himself apart. That's kind of the
Mm.
criticism of Gerard Butler, right? You want to
Yeah.
see him take that leap and do something he hasn't done before. And
Yeah.
there's probably only a couple films he's done that in.
Right.
And yet he's one of these guys that I usually always like his films.
Sure.
So there's good effects. There's crazy things like this is one where you get kind of a grab bag of different disasters. A lot of these
Okay.
are just like
One thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
one thing. And
Yeah.
here you've got there's like at one point there's like triple tornadoes on Earth. There's
Oh.
lightning storms. There's a super freeze like day after
Oh.
tomorrow.
Okay.
There's tidal waves. Like you get a
Okay.
little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And so I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it. Except I did really enjoy it,
Okay.
and I think I need to watch it again in slow motion,
Right.
maybe. So
Yeah.
I recommend it, but I could see where people were like, what were they even trying to accomplish in that movie? But it is
Sure.
actually there's some good, really good stuff there, honestly.
Okay. Okay. I'll definitely be checking that out because yeah, I didn't get to that one either, but I saw it listed on several lists, so I'll try to seek that one out soon and let you know my thoughts. All right, on to my 10th and final pick. You started with Armageddon. I'm going to end with Deep Impact
Okay, okay.
because I really like Deep Impact. I know a lot of people think Armageddon's the better movie. I get it. I get it. But I really like Deep Impact. I think what they do with Deep Impact, first of all, it just feels a lot more realistic.
Mm,
So it's got that going for it for me. I also think the character, there's multiple characters in the storylines that we're following, and I find
yeah,
all of them to be really compelling. I really
the
do. I think
president's in there,
the president, exactly, Morgan Freeman, he does a great job as the president
of
here and
course.
in Olympus Has Fallen.
Yeah.
And then you've got young Elijah Wood, pre Lord of
Yeah.
the Rings here,
Hmm.
delivering a great performance as well. And then Taya Leone and her whole storyline. So all of it works well because you've got kind of the president, you've got this young kid astronomer who's kind of in the middle of all this, and then you have Taya Leone's kind of the reporter reporting on all of it, and all of their personal relationships I find to be very compelling and believable. I find several moments to be really emotional. It's really more about that. It's not about stopping the comet. There is that plot line as well with Robert Duvall and the
Yeah. Yeah.
astronauts doing their thing, but that's not the focus of the film. The focus of the film really is the world's about to end. What are you going to do? It's kind of that kind of
Hmm.
scenario. And so it's all really well done. I think it's really well shot. Mimi Letter directed this. She's a excellent director. I want to see more of her work. I thought she did a great job directing this. I think the screenplay is really good. The effects, they're not on level with Armageddon, certainly. I think there are some moments that look great. Others,
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
look not so great. But I think the emotional through line here, I think the score also really brings out that emotion.
Mm.
And all of that, I think, really works well. It's a very well shot film too. A lot of it on location. So yeah, I'm actually a big fan of Deep Impact. I know a lot of people say, this came out, why did this come out at the same time as Armageddon? I think if it had a couple years earlier or later, I think it would
Yeah.
be more appreciated. I got too many comparisons when it what really wasn't
Yeah.
trying to do the same thing, even though it's kind of a
Yeah.
similar
Exactly.
plot.
Hmm.
So yeah, anyways, that's my final pick. So
Yeah.
unless
It's
you
I
want
don't
to
hate
give
it.
your thought.
It's
Yeah,
decent. I just yeah, it's not my favorite one though. Yeah.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Alrighty, that's my last pick. So Bert, what do you have for your final selection?
And I've got for that one, I'll take The Day After Tomorrow that I mentioned a little bit
Okay.
ago.
All right.
Really enjoyed this one in the theater.
Hmm.
And it's a decent film. I just feel like a lot of better ones have come along since then.
Sure.
And it's one of these that I think around those time early 2000s there was this really big climate push, right? And so
Sure.
in this film I think it tries to convey that this could really happen the day after tomorrow if we don't do something. And
Yeah.
so I get that, but what happens in the movie is pretty fun, and I like the actors in it. um uh Sorry, I went to the list here. Dennis Quaid,
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal, Emmy Ross, some
Hmm.
really actors that are really good. The CG hasn't really held up the best,
Mm.
but and it's kind of in some ways a road movie. They're
Right.
some of the characters are trying to cross certain terrains to get to their
Yep.
family and this and that.
Hmm.
The freeze that happens, there's some decent effects, but it's a little bit over the top. So
Right. Yeah.
we're not in 4-star film territory
Sure.
here, but it's one that I've seen a few times, and I at this point I think the thing I still like the best about it is actually the film score, the musical score.
Oh, okay.
It's a really nice score that
Mm.
was one of my favorites for a long time.
Okay.
So It's pretty good. I mean,
Yeah.
passable entertainment. I think I'm at 2.5, 3 stars on it though.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's probably about where I am. Maybe a little bit lower. I don't remember it
Hmm.
super well.
Okay.
It's one that
There's
I've
these
only
wolves
seen
in it that
once.
are
Oh,
all
really?
CG
Okay.
and they look kind of bad. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I get
right.
it's as I said, there's many better ones that we've covered.
Right.
But
Sure.
when you're this low in the draft, you kind of
Right.
see who's out there and you'll give them a try.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, there's not a yeah, that's why we didn't do a top 20 because there's really not 20, there's not 40 great disaster movies.
Yeah.
There might not even be 20.
Did you have any
But
honorable mentions though?
I don't think so. No, I don't think I do. How about you?
I had a couple.
Okay.
And again, these are just decent. You know, they're okay.
Hmm.
One of them is called Hard Rain with
Oh, I wanted to
Morgan.
watch that.
Yeah, yeah,
I
it's
didn't
not
get to
bad.
see
You
it.
know, it's
Okay.
about flooding,
Right.
and Morgan Freeman's in it. Christian Slater. It's decent. I haven't seen it in many years.
Okay.
And then one that's probably the most ludicrous that you could watch, and that's The Core.
Oh, yeah. See, that's another one I haven't seen, but I've heard.
Yeah, very ludicrous,
Hmm.
ludicrous speed, and it's. But I still liked it. There were
Yeah.
elements of it that were decent. So
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, that's it for disaster movie ranking draft. That was a fun one. We haven't covered this genre before, so it's always fun to dive into these new ones that haven't been covered previously. And yeah, a lot of these very entertaining films. I think you'll get something out of pretty much all of these if you check them out. Let us know your picks. If you were to, have your own list, what were some of your favorite disaster films, natural disaster films? Again, we'll cover, nautical and aerial disasters at a future date.
yeah,
But yeah, if we're just looking at natural disasters, give us some of your picks in the comments below. Tell us whose list you prefer. If you lean one way or the other, let us know which list you liked. Um, Next week, I've got my X-Men shirt on because, well, for two reasons, actually. Not only is Deadpool and Wolverine coming out, but Storm, I mean, she's kind of a disaster movie in and of herself, right? I mean, she can create
oh,
all kinds of
that's
natural
true.
disasters. So I thought it tied in pretty well. But
That does. Wow.
um, yeah, we're going to talk about X-Men movies next week. We've got the first X-Men movie set in the MCU coming out. A lot of anticipation around this film. It's reaching a fever pitch, I feel like. And so you can't escape the marketing. I mean, it's just everywhere. So we're going to talk about all the X-Men movies. We're going to review and rank every X-Men film. We'll be discussing Deadpool and Wolverine on the podcast. We'll give you our reaction as soon as we see it. So check back to the channel very soon. Bert, this was a blast. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, it was a literal blast. I enjoyed
It
it.
was indeed. Thank you again for watching and listening. We are zeroing in on 600 subscribers now. We're getting really close. So thank you so much for all your support. Make sure you share this on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're all over social media. Those links are in the description below. Bert and I are both on Letterboxd. You can follow us there. Check out our in-depth reviews of each of these movies. We've got all kinds of lists on there as well. So be sure you follow us there. Thank you again. We will see you next time right here on The Real World.